Okay, so get this. We're diving deep today into large language models.
LLMs.
LLMs, that's right.
Mm.
The AI systems that are powering everything these days. Chatbots, search engines.
Pretty much everything.
Yeah, and we're looking at some research that found a vulnerability that's pretty unsettling.
Oh.
Yeah, think about how these LLMs turn words into numbers. There's like a secret code.
Right, embeddings.
Exactly, embeddings. And get this, researchers are saying this code can be cracked.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. How this vulnerability works, how it can be exploited, and how we can defend against it.
Sounds fascinating.
So are you ready to uncover some universal magic words that can trick these systems?
I am definitely ready. Let's do it.
All right, let's dive in.
So these large language models are super complex, but the way they process language creates a pattern.
Hmm.
It's predictable, and it's kind of like, think of it like all the words in the English language are scattered across a giant map.
Okay, I'm visualizing it.
Right, so words with similar meanings end up clustered together.
Okay, makes sense.
And researchers have found that this clustering creates a sort of weak spot, a direction where the model is more easily influenced.
So you're saying there's like this hidden bias built into how the model understands language.
Exactly. And here's the crazy part. By adding specific words, you can exploit that bias. It's almost like a secret password.
Well, so just adding a word. Like, let's say Christopher can make a chatbot think a hateful message is okay.
It is a serious concern.
That sounds really dangerous.
It is, and it really highlights just how much impact a seemingly harmless word can have. These so-called magic words push the model's understanding in a specific direction, which can make it misclassify text.
Can you give me a specific example?
Sure. Researchers found that when they added the word Lucraria to a piece of text, the similarity score between that text and another random piece of text increased dramatically.
Wow. So like if I'm using a search engine and this manipulation is happening, I could start seeing completely irrelevant results.
Yeah.
Even harmful ones.
Exactly. It really makes you wonder how many other hidden codes are out there that we haven't found yet.
Right. It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
So how did researchers even find these magic words? Did they just stumble upon them?
Not exactly. They actually had to get pretty creative. Imagine spending days and days just trying every single word in the dictionary to see what happens.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That sounds tedious.
Yeah, luckily they also figured out some smarter techniques. They basically used the model's own math against itself to figure out the most effective words.
So like hacking the system to figure out its weaknesses.
Exactly.
But knowing about these magic words is only half the battle, right? What can we actually do to protect ourselves?
Well, there are a few promising strategies that are being explored right now. One is called renormalization, which basically rebalances the model's understanding. So it's less vulnerable to those magic words.
So it's like scrambling the code to make those words less effective.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
But
But is renormalization a perfect solution? Could it make the model less accurate?
that's a great question. And honestly, there's always going to be some kind of trade-off. Researchers are constantly working on finding the right balance between making the model secure and making sure they're still accurate. Another approach is something called vocabulary cleaning. And this is about being super careful about which words are included in the model's vocabulary.
Oh, so it's like getting rid of the troublemakers from the dictionary before they can even cause problems.
Precisely.
Are there any other defenses that researchers were working on?
Yeah, absolutely. There's also something called reinitialization, which basically resets the embeddings for those words that aren't used very often.
Interesting. So like giving those less popular words a fresh start.
Right, and that makes them harder to manipulate.
Okay, so we've got these magic words that can bypass an LLM security, and we've got some defenses being developed to counter them. What kind of damage could someone actually do with these words? Like, what are we really talking about here?
Okay, well, imagine this. Someone figures out how to use these magic words to bypass those safety filters that are on a chatbot,
Right.
which then allows the chatbot to start creating harmful content. Or they could manipulate the system that's meant to block dangerous responses.
Oh, wow.
So you might ask what seems like a totally innocent question,
Right.
but it's loaded with these magic words. And because of that, the LLM ends up giving you dangerous or misleading information.
So it's not just about protecting these LLMs from being tricked into doing something bad. It's also about protecting ourselves from the bad info they might give us.
You got it.
And this isn't just limited to chatbots, right? What about other places LLMs are used?
That's right. Think about search engine rankings, for example.
Okay. Yeah.
Someone could insert these magic words into the content on their website, and that could artificially boost their ranking,
Yikes.
potentially spreading misinformation or harmful content to a huge audience.
This is seriously scary stuff.
It is. It really shows how much power seemingly simple words have to disrupt these complex
It
systems.
feels like the Wild West of AI. We're still trying to figure out where the fences go,
Yeah.
and meanwhile, the horses are running free.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, it's a little unnerving. But hopefully with these defenses that are being developed, we can start to rein things in a bit.
I hope so too. It's definitely a challenge, but it's one that we need to address head on.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk more about the bigger picture implications of all this.
Sounds good. Yeah, it really is a rapidly changing world, and we really need to stay ahead of the game when it comes to understanding these vulnerabilities.
Absolutely.
Mm.
We can't just react. We have to be proactive. But let's take a step back for a second and look at the bigger picture. We've been talking a lot about the technical side of these magic words. What does all this mean for the average person? The people using these systems every day.
That is a really important question. For you, the average person who uses LLMs on a daily basis, this means you have to be aware that the information you're getting might not always be accurate. Think of it like it's like you've been using a map to get around, but then you find out the map is full of errors.
So we have to be a little skeptical
Yeah.
when it comes to information from AI, like a trust but verify kind of thing.
Exactly. Don't just blindly believe everything an LLM tells you. Double check things, look for different sources, and watch out for content that sounds too good to be true, or that just confirms what you already believe.
That's good advice for the whole internet, not just for AI. But this brings up a really interesting question about responsibility. When someone uses these magic words to get an LLM to do something harmful, who is to blame? The developers who made the system, the companies that use it, or the people who are interacting with it?
That's a tough question. And there isn't a simple answer. It's a shared responsibility, I think, and it needs everyone to work together. Developers need to make security a priority and build strong defenses. Companies need to set up safeguards and monitor for misuse. And users need to be educated about the risks and how to protect themselves.
It sounds like we need to attack this problem from all sides.
Mm.
But let's not forget about the good that can come from LLMs.
Of course, these systems have the potential to change so many industries. They can automate tasks, personalize experiences, help us understand complex information. But to really unlock that potential, we have to address these vulnerabilities and build trust in these systems.
It's like any powerful tool. It can be used for good or bad.
Really?
It all comes down to us, how we choose to use it. We need to understand the risks, but also be excited about the possibilities.
I totally agree. It's all about balance. Using the power of LLMs while also managing the risks. And open, honest conversation is key. We need to talk about these challenges and find solutions together.
We have to move beyond just talking about the problems, though.
Right.
What's actually being done right now to deal with these vulnerabilities, to make sure LLMs are developed responsibly?
Well, like we said, researchers are always working on new ways to defend against these magic word attacks. But it's not all about the technical stuff. There's a growing movement toward developing ethical guidelines for developing and using AI.
So it's about making ethics part of how these systems are built, not just something we tack on at the end.
Exactly. And it's about creating a culture of responsibility among developers and companies, encouraging them to make safety and transparency top priorities.
This is fascinating stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like we're still in the early stages of understanding LLMs and all the complexities
Mm-hmm.
and how to navigate it all. But one thing is clear. We need to stay informed, engaged, and proactive if we want to shape the future of this technology in a positive way.
I couldn't agree more. The future of LLMs isn't set in stone. It's up to all of us to make sure it benefits everyone.
So we've got these magic words that can get around the security of LLMs, and we have these defenses being developed to fight back against them. It's kind of like a technological arms race. But it's not just about the technology itself. It's about the choices we make and the actions we take to make sure AI is a force for good in the world.
That's a great point. It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll wrap things up with some final thoughts and key takeaways.
Sounds good.
We've been on quite a journey today, haven't we? We started by talking about these magic words that can mess with those super complex LLMs.
It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a little unsettling to think about how vulnerable these systems are. But I'm also feeling hopeful about those solutions and safeguards that are being developed.
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act. We're all learning as we go about what LLMs can and can't do. And the research is moving so fast. But I think the main takeaway here is that we have to be aware the more we understand about these weaknesses, the better we'll be able to navigate all of this.
Knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to AI. It's almost like learning a new language.
Yeah.
The more you understand the rules,
Mhm.
the better you can communicate.
Exactly.
But it's not just about the technical stuff, is it? We have to think about what these LLMs mean for society as they become more and more a part of our lives.
You're right. We need to be asking those big questions like, how do we make sure these systems are used ethically and responsibly? How do we stop bias from creeping in and making existing inequalities worse? How do we balance the potential benefits with the potential risks?
Those are some heavy questions.
Yeah.
But we have to have those conversations. And it's not just up to the experts and researchers, is it? We all have a role to play.
Definitely. We need all kinds of voices: developers, policymakers, ethicists, and everyday users like you. It's a team effort. And the more informed and engaged we are, the better the outcomes will be.
So what can we as individuals do to make sure we're using LLMs responsibly and helping create a positive future for this tech?
A good place to start is just being aware of the potential biases and limitations of these systems. Don't take everything an LLM tells you as fact. Check things out, look for different sources, and think critically about anything that seems too good to be true or that just confirms your own beliefs.
So it's like being a smart consumer.
Mhm.
We have to be critical of the information we're getting, whether it's from a person or an AI.
Exactly. And remember, you have a voice. Don't be afraid to speak up if you see something that seems wrong or unethical. Get involved in discussions about AI ethics and advocate for responsible development and use.
So it's all about being informed, engaged, and empowered. We need to be active participants in shaping the future of AI, not just sitting back and watching it happen.
Perfectly said. The future of LLMs isn't some fixed path. It's a journey we're all on together. And the choices we make today are going to determine where we end up tomorrow.
Well, that's a thought-provoking note to end on, I think. So there you have it, folks. That wraps up our deep dive into universal magic words and those LLM vulnerabilities. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the technical details to the ethical questions and potential solutions. But even more important, I hope we've piqued your curiosity and made you think more about the role of AI in our lives. Remember, the future of AI is in our hands. Let's make sure we use that power wisely. Thanks for joining us.